It seems like our bank's approach doesn't suit you. A high school graduate from a single-parent household is fired.
Standing in front of me was none other than the new president, Alex Miller, who had just taken over the bank. With a smug grin, Alex announced my dismissal and proceeded to kick me out of the bank. Despite my track record of making no major mistakes and even boosting performance for the bank, Alex clearly intended to throw me out like trash. And so began my battle with Alex. My name is David Nelson. I'm a 36-year-old banker working at a major bank in Chicago. After losing my dad at a young age, I grew up in a single-parent household. I started working right after high school, but now I've earned the trust of my colleagues and supervisors, and I'm entrusted with large projects. My life's been good. Thanks to my hard work, I've been able to give back to my mom. During long vacations, I even take her to a resort holiday around the US. I thought I'd live out a peaceful life like this, but fate had other plans for me. One of the reasons behind this shift might be the industry's overall decline. The same methods that had worked before were no longer attracting new customers, and rumors of a possible merger started spreading among us bankers. To open new business opportunities, the former president had been actively working hard, but collapsed in the middle of it all. Fortunately, he was found quickly, and his life was saved. I breathed a sigh of relief when I heard the news, though it was confirmed he'd need a long hospital stay. Even after his recovery, it was determined that he wouldn't be able to return to the front lines like before, leading to the decision for a change in leadership. The new president appointed was Alex Miller, the former president's eldest son. Alex was in his early 40s and had previously worked in the international hotel industry. I'd heard he had chosen a different industry to gain broader experience, which made me think he was passionate about his work. But that assumption turned out to be wrong in the worst way. As soon as he became the president, Alex issued an outrageous order. The very first time he showed up in our office, he arrogantly crossed his arms and scanned the room full of employees with a critical glare. He zeroed in on the senior employees and announced with a strong, commanding voice,
Now that I'm in charge, we're changing the old ways. To make this a place where young talent thrives, we're promoting employees under 30 to key positions.
Alex demoted longtime seniors who'd held key roles for over 10 years, practically pushing them to the sidelines. In their place, he started promoting young, highly educated bankers to important positions one after another.
This bank will run on merit from now on. We're building a transparent institution led by the most ambitious young professionals.
At first glance, Alex's argument seemed reasonable. However, my fellow bankers and I voiced our opposition. Sure, evaluating someone based on their abilities is important, but making such a drastic change all at once is too reckless. Alex had just been appointed the president and knew nothing about the inner workings of the bank or the strengths and personalities of the staff. Even if he wanted to improve the bank, this approach would never work. With that in mind, I gathered the opinions of my colleagues and decided to speak up to Alex. The senior bankers feel disrespected after having their accomplishments and skills overlooked and being pushed to the sidelines. Meanwhile, the younger staff suddenly thrown into key positions are overwhelmed by the gap between their responsibilities and their actual experience.
David, wasn't it? You're in a managerial position as well, despite being relatively young. If you don't like my directives that much, I'll take the burden off your shoulders.
Alex refused to listen to any of our concerns. In fact, he demoted me and stripped me of my title, reducing me to a regular employee. My replacement, a bright young banker who had only been with the bank for 3 years. Although talented, he was the most unsettled by this sudden promotion. No matter how smart or highly educated someone is, there's no substitute for experience. In the past, the workplace ensured senior colleagues could support newly promoted managers. But with Alex's reshuffle, there were no experienced employees left to provide guidance. The chaos didn't stop with me. Similar reshuffling happened across departments, plunging the entire workplace into disorder. Eventually, daily operations were disrupted, and even our clients began to suffer the consequences. Seeing the impact on our business partners, I decided to confront Alex again. Alex, we can't continue our operations as usual under these conditions. Our current situation is damaging the bank's reputation with our clients.
What are you even talking about? Banks of the future shouldn't be a haven for aging employees. They should be a stage for young talent to shine. We don't need the reputation we've built up if it means holding on to the past.
His response was a cold, derisive laugh. I spoke up for the sake of the bank and my colleagues, but Alex snorted in disdain at my words.
You're just upset that younger employees have surpassed you in rank, aren't you? Employees like you are dead weight to the company.
No matter how much I pleaded, Alex wouldn't budge from his stance. No matter how sincerely I explained, my words never got through to him. Even when I asked him to create a system where senior bankers could support the younger staff, he flatly dismissed it, saying it wasn't necessary. Finally, with a look of contempt, Alex pulled out my personnel file.
All right, David, you just want your old position back. I mean, come on, a high school graduate working at a bank and even managing a team? That must have been a fluke.
Could you at least look at my performance record? I've been at the top in sales. I tried to explain, but Alex waved his hand impatiently to silence me.
Yeah, I get it. But as someone who graduated from an Ivy League school, I really don't get what a high school diploma holder like you has to say. Anyway, just take your vacation as scheduled, David.
I was worried about the bank and my colleagues, but this was the time of year when I took my mom on our annual trip to a resort holiday. Since I had already submitted my paid leave request, I reluctantly decided to take my vacation. I never imagined things would turn out like this, but at least I resolved to enjoy the trip and clear my head. I had a wonderful time showing my mom around and relaxing at the resort hotel, but when I returned home, I was greeted by an unexpected surprise. There's an envelope from my workplace. I wasn't expecting anything. Curious, I opened the envelope. Inside was a resignation letter. It was already filled out with my name and details. Only my signature was missing. Of course, I had no intention of quitting and had never asked anyone to prepare a resignation letter for me. Why did they send me a resignation form? Did they mistake me for someone else? Why was a resignation letter sent to me? Did they mistake me for someone else? I was shocked and kept asking myself, but no matter how many times I checked, my name was clearly written on it. Still bewildered, I returned to work after my vacation and immediately consulted my manager. However, my manager was just as stunned and completely confused about the resignation letter with my name on it. At that moment, Alex appeared and looked at me with a sly grin. "I received a resignation letter in the mail addressed to me. Do you know anything about it, Alex?" As I asked, I noticed something strange. Alex wasn't even trying to hide his amusement as he watched my flustered reaction with a smug smile. At that moment, my suspicion became certainty. He must have been the one who had that resignation letter sent. Alex met my questioning gaze and grinned even more, as if enjoying the situation.
Looks like you don't fit in with our bank's way of doing things, David. Single mom, high school graduate, and you're fired.
The loud declaration caused the entire office to fall silent. It was true that I grew up in a single-parent household and started working after high school, but I had never broadcasted that to everyone. Alex's decision to air my personal life like that caught the attention of everyone in the bank. Despite my flawless record and contributions that boosted the bank's success, it seemed I was no longer needed here. If that's the case, the next step for me was to start job hunting. As that thought crossed my mind, I found myself surprisingly calm and composed. "Understood. Thank you for everything." I accepted with a cheerful tone, signed the resignation letter on the spot, and began packing up my belongings. And I bid farewell to my colleagues, who were buzzing about the sudden situation. "Thank you for all your support. I'll be on my way now." If Alex kept running the bank this recklessly, there wouldn't be a future for this place. I felt bad for leaving my colleagues behind, but once I finished packing, I left the office. As I walked away, my coworkers watched me, visibly stunned. Some of them looked like they were about to cry and begged me to reconsider. Considering my sales record, their reaction made sense. And as for Alex, he stood there with his mouth agape, staring at me. He must have expected me to panic and fall apart after being handed my resignation. Instead, I had boldly declared my departure and left the company without hesitation. Alex looked completely blindsided and stood in shock for a while. Just as I was about to walk out of the office, Alex finally called out,
Are you really going to quit? Once you leave, you'll be unemployed starting tomorrow. Who would hire someone from a single-parent background with only a high school diploma?
"You don't need to worry about me. This is my decision." Alex's eyes darted nervously, and he seemed flustered. But I stayed firm in my resolve and left the room. On my way out, I submitted the resignation letter and finalized the paperwork to use up the remaining vacation days. There was nothing left for me to do at this bank. However, just as I stepped outside the building, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. When I turned around, I saw Alex standing there, his face flushed red.
Do you really understand what you've done? You just quit the company. You know I didn't force you to resign, right?
Yes, I chose to leave of my own free will. I have no complaints and no misunderstandings. I'm sorry for causing such a commotion. When Alex heard my response, he looked stunned. He had probably expected me to beg to stay, crying for a second chance. But I had already made up my mind to leave the bank behind. With one final nod, I headed home for good. I didn't actually think I'd quit on the spot. However, that brief moment of peace didn't last long. The next morning, as I was eating breakfast, my phone suddenly rang. The caller number showed it was from my former workplace, the bank I had just left yesterday. Why are they calling me? Did I forget to wrap up something? Curious but unable to ignore the call, I picked up. The moment I hit the answer button, a loud voice boomed through the line.
Finally, you answered. What's the deal with that article? Get to the bank immediately, you hear me?
With all due respect, I've already resigned. I can't think of any reason why I'd need to come in. I was about to hang up when Alex continued shouting at me.
There's something we need to discuss about your resignation. Just get here quickly. I can't explain everything over the phone.
Understood. I'll come over. I knew that if I hung up, Alex would keep calling until I agreed. Annoyed by his persistence, I quickly got ready. My mom watched me curiously as I prepared to leave. The bank called me in, so I'll be out for a bit. I gave her a brief explanation and left the house. About 30 minutes later, I arrived at my former workplace. As soon as I headed toward my old desk, a colleague rushed over to me, visibly flustered. They led me to the president's office and explained the situation along the way. Apparently, shortly after arriving at work, Alex started screaming nonsensically and throwing a fit. He then demanded that I be called in and even started dialing my number himself. Wondering what this was all about, I entered the president's office, which was adorned with luxurious carpeting. Inside, I saw Alex waving a newspaper around with a half-crazed expression.
Is this David mentioned in the article you?
Oh, I see the interview I gave has already been published. When Alex heard my reply, his face turned pale and then red, shifting between the two shades in quick succession. I let out a sigh in my mind. It was clear now that Alex hadn't been briefed by his father, the former president. The article was about the future of the financial industry, shaped by emerging technologies such as AI. I had been interviewed as a representative expert on the server infrastructure needed for banks of the future. After graduating from high school, I joined a local company. The main reason I entered the workforce right after high school was because my dad had passed away suddenly from an illness when I was in 5th grade. My mom, who had been a stay-at-home mom until then, suddenly became responsible for supporting our entire household. I was deeply grateful to her for working tirelessly from morning till night, and promised myself I would repay her kindness once I grew up. My mom found work as a part-time administrative assistant at a local company. She never worked before, learned on the job while also earning the necessary qualifications, and poured herself into her work. Thanks to her, I had a smooth school life and graduated elementary school without any issues. I went on to the local high school, where I made good friends and enjoyed my everyday life. However, as everyone around me started to seriously think about their future education or careers, I began to realize just how much of a burden my mom had been carrying. I couldn't continue living carefreely while she worked so hard. That's when I made a firm decision. Mom, I'm going to work after I graduate high school. I can't let you bear the burden alone. So starting next year, I want you to take better care of yourself and rest more. One fall morning, just as I had started last year of high school, I told her this. but my mom firmly insisted that I should continue my education. The truth is, I was at the top of my class for all 3 years of high school and excelled in academics. Math was my strongest subject, and I even placed in the top 100 in the state during a national standardized test and received an award. Because of this, my mom believed that I should continue my studies through college. I wasn't willing to back down. I understand what you're saying, but going to college isn't my life's goal. What's more important is that I grow into someone who can stand on his own. I vividly remember the surprised look in her eyes when I said that. It was the first time my mom realized how seriously I'd been thinking about my future. To ease her concerns, I carefully explained that I already had a specific company in mind where I wanted to work and walked her through my life plans. After hours of talking, she finally understood that I wasn't choosing a job because we couldn't afford tuition, but because I genuinely wanted to work at that company. And so, I graduated from high school and immediately joined a local company. The first time I got a paycheck, I felt the full weight of hard work and the value of earning my own money. The company was an IT firm, and with my knack for math, I quickly became engrossed in programming. It turned out the work suited me perfectly. I absorbed knowledge at a pace that amazed even my senior coworkers. I didn't just keep up. I mastered every new technology that emerged, one after another. In particular, I became a world-class expert in cybersecurity. It was my reputation as a trailblazer in the industry that caught the attention of Alex's father, the former president of the bank. Back when he was still in good health, he approached me with a request to secure personal and financial data for the bank's future. Moved by his desire to protect the local community who trusted the bank with their savings, I decided to switch jobs and join the bank. Since then, I've led the bank's cybersecurity efforts, revolutionizing its security protocols. Over the years, I developed innovative technologies that reshaped industry standards. My achievements caught the attention of not only the financial world, but other industries as well, leading to numerous interview requests. One of those interviews was what led to the newspaper article that caused this commotion. Alex's face was as red as a tomato as he waved the newspaper, featuring my name and photo in large print, around in rage.
Why are you being featured so prominently? You're supposed to be a high school diploma from a single-parent household.
With all due respect, Alex, my work has nothing to do with my background or education. Isn't it the results that matter more than how someone was raised? Alex, whose face had turned red all the way to his hairline, was still unwilling to accept my response. Frustrated, he turned on the TV, but the news channel was also showing a segment about my interview. The security system I had unveiled was far more versatile and advanced than any previous solutions. The interviewer on screen enthusiastically praised my accomplishments, marveling at how lucky the company was to have me before concluding the segment. The program then transitioned to the next feature. The screen transitioned to the next feature.
Could it be that David is really someone of global importance? Why does our bank have someone who's making headlines on TV?
After watching the news, Alex seemed to finally recognize my value. He muttered to himself repeatedly, then suddenly raised his head and stepped toward me.
I understand the situation. You've surely learned your lesson by now, so I'm granting you a special chance to return. Starting today, I expect you to work hard for the bank again.
What? Why are you saying this now? I already submitted my resignation yesterday. Alex was the one who kicked me out in the first place, and naturally, I had no intention of returning to this bank. I was sure that yesterday's exchange had made that clear, but Alex stared at me with his mouth hanging open.
Resignation? That document is void, of course. Having a globally recognized figure in our bank would be a huge point of pride for our security.
Even so, I've already accepted an offer at a new company. I'm not coming back. I calmly explained, and Alex's eyes narrowed in frustration.
Why? I'm telling you that you're welcome to return. There's no need to be stubborn and lie. This bank gave a high school graduate from a single-parent household like you a chance. Just come back right now.
Will you pay me $30,000 a month? Alex's jaw dropped so far it looked like it might unhinge.
$30,000 a month? You must mean per year. Even $30,000 a year is generous for someone with your background, but I'll make an exception for you.
No, I meant $30,000 per month. That's how much my new company values my skills. When I stated this calmly, sweat began to drip down Alex's forehead. Even after seeing my accomplishments broadcast nationwide, he still couldn't fully grasp my worth due to his outdated way of judging people by their upbringing and education. As Alex opened and closed his mouth like a fish gasping for air, I continued. If you can't meet those terms, I won't return to this bank.
That's ridiculous. There's no way you could have found a new job so quickly after just resigning yesterday.
Alex spat his words at me, glaring fiercely. He was clearly upset that I had rejected his offer and was desperate to find fault with me.
No matter how famous you are, no company would hire someone who just resigned out of the blue. No responsible manager would take that risk.
That's why I rejoined a company that knows me well, the local IT firm that hired me when I first started working after high school. Hearing my answer, Alex stood there dumbfounded.
A local IT company, capable of paying $30,000 a month. There's only one.
Yes, the very company you're thinking of. They've been a loyal client of this bank for years. But after hearing about everything that led to my resignation, they're reconsidering their partnership. Our town is home to one of the nation's top IT companies, known across the country. Anyone who hears its name recognizes it instantly. The reason they had stayed loyal to this bank was because of me. In fact, the bank's financial stability largely depended on that partnership. Even someone as out of touch as Alex understood the value of that company. His mouth hung open, and his face grew visibly paler by the second.
There's no way, David, a high school graduate from a single-parent household, joined that company. And now they're canceling their contract with us.
Yes, I'm a high school graduate. And yes, I grew up in a single-parent household. But a person's value isn't determined by their background or education. It's defined by their achievements, don't you think? As I spoke calmly, Alex's face turned red, then blue, then red again.
Fine, I'll double your salary. No, I'll pay you $30,000 a month. You're indispensable to this bank. I admit that now. Please, come back and help us keep that contract.
Alex's face twisted in desperation as he pleaded with me, his clenched fist trembling. Knowing Alex's pride, I was sure he had never imagined he'd be in a position where he had to lower himself like this. But now that the survival of the bank was at stake, He finally realized the gravity of the situation and was willing to change his attitude. If Alex had recognized his mistakes earlier, things might not have come to this. However, rather than forgive Alex, who dismissed the opinions of senior employees and labeled them as dead weight, I could only feel pity for him. So, I won't be returning to his bank. As you envisioned, please continue doing your best with your young team. I gave Alex a look filled with both pity and disbelief. Once I had said everything I needed to, I quietly left the room. Even as I walked away, I could hear Alex's pitiful voice calling after me, trying to stop me. Eventually, I heard a loud thud as he collapsed to the floor, crying out loudly. But I no longer cared. Without me leading the security team, I was sure the bank would soon be in trouble. And if the top IT company in the area pulled out their dealings with the bank, it was only a matter of time before the bank's financial situation worsened. I hated the thought of my former colleagues being caught up in this mess. However, Alex's reckless management had brought this upon the bank, and there was nothing I could do about it. As I left the president's office, I glanced back for just a moment. In the lavishly decorated room, Alex stood frozen in place, speechless. After that, I rejoined the IT company where I had previously worked and settled back into an enjoyable daily routine. Having worked there before, I was able to fit in easily with both the office environment and my colleagues. Moreover, since the job focused on developing security systems, my specialty, I had no trouble enjoying a peaceful and productive work life. I had forgotten just how fulfilling it could be to work with trustworthy teammates and focus on meaningful projects, something I'd lost sight of during my time at the bank under Alex's leadership. However, during one lunch break, I came across a piece of news that made me do a double take. It was an announcement that the bank I used to work for was facing bankruptcy. Just as I had warned Alex, losing the partnership with our IT firm had caused their revenue to plummet. Worse yet, rumors about the bank losing a major partner spread quickly, causing other businesses to also cut ties. The news segment even pointed out that the bank's downfall was largely due to its loss of skilled employees. Based on the timing and details, they were most likely referring to me. I felt bad for my former coworkers, but I was also genuinely surprised to see my contributions recognized to that extent. When I returned to the office after lunch, I was informed that a visitor was waiting for me. When I reached the lobby, I was shocked to see Alex standing there. He looked much different from how he had during my time at the bank. His face was pale, and he seemed jittery, clinging to me with desperate eyes. As soon as I greeted him, Alex burst into tears and dropped to his knees at my feet.
The bank is going to collapse if this continues. Please, come back and save the bank.
Alex cried out loud, causing a scene as he rambled on about the bank situation, even though I hadn't asked. To avoid the worried stares of passing employees, I took Alex to a nearby cafe. There, I listened as he gave me a detailed explanation of the bank's current state. Apparently, after I left, Alex had taken it upon himself to oversee the maintenance of the bank's security system. However, his pride didn't allow him to continue using the system I had created.
I can't trust a system made by a high school graduate from a single-parent home. We need to order a new one.
Alex proudly introduced a new security system. However, during the transition, numerous issues arose, causing major disruptions to the bank's daily operations. As a result, not only businesses, but also individual customers began withdrawing from the bank one after another. Alex explained that he had been scolded daily by the former president, his father, who blamed him as the responsible party. Once he finished his explanation, Alex broke down in tears again, bowing his head and pleading with me.
Your former colleagues are in trouble. Please come back to the bank.
I was forced out by you, Alex. You even mailed me my resignation letter. Don't act like it didn't happen. When I first saw that resignation letter with my name on it, I felt deeply hurt and sad. But after returning to my current workplace, where my value is recognized and I can thrive, I found immense satisfaction. Working with reliable colleagues and being able to contribute meaningfully has left me with no complaints. That's why I had no reason to return to the bank.
Please, I'm begging you. If you don't come back, I'm going to be removed as the president.
I understand your situation, but that doesn't give me a reason to return to the bank. I respected the former president, so please pass my regards to him. I was utterly disappointed with Alex, who only cared about saving his own position. With that thought, I left the cafe. Behind me, I could still hear Alex sobbing and wailing. In the end, the bank was driven to the brink of bankruptcy. However, whether fortunately or unfortunately, it was acquired by a major bank, and my former colleagues were able to keep their jobs. I was relieved that they regained some stability in their lives, though not everyone's situation remained the same. The most prominent change was Alex's fate. Alex was held accountable for his poor leadership and was forced to resign. But the story didn't end there. During the pre-merger investigation, it was discovered that Alex had been embezzling bank funds. Under the guise of reforming the bank, Alex had filed personal expenses such as private dinners and entertainment as business costs. It went as far as using company funds for his private trips and luxury car purchases. The investigation revealed that he had misappropriated a significant amount of money. Alex was charged with embezzlement, arrested, and faced a lawsuit demanding repayment of damages, along with criminal charges. Although he had already been dismissed, he was still held liable. He's currently awaiting trial. Once a man who lorded over us bankers with arrogance, Alex is now pale with fear, spending his days trembling as he desperately tries to avoid punishment.